Anybody that has been following me on Instagram knows that I've been going on and on about this tattoo. So let's talk about the Cthulhu piece. This is a two-part piece. This is the inside and then outside. So this is the inner part of the tattoo. But today we're working on the outside. I make my stencil the same way I usually do in Procreate by, making it black and white, duplicate the layer, turn that layer to a divide layer, which is somewhere around there. Gaussian blur and turn it to somewhere between 5 and 8%, whatever makes sense to me, whatever looks right. The camera's blown this out massively, but trust me, in real life it didn't look that ridiculous. I then group those two layers, duplicate the group, merge the group, then merge the group, and turn that into a linear burn. This just strengthens some of the elements, makes it better for the printer to read. I then add some black marks over the weaker areas, and I also set that to a soft light so that, again, I can start picking out some of the areas that come out a little bit too light for the printer to read. Simple, easy, but despite my best efforts, the printer has other ideas. It chewed up the paper, gave me this fucking terrible streaky print, and today was the day that I gave up on this printer. I'm sick of it. It doesn't fucking work. Just a series of problems with these Epson printers. Look at that. What a fucking mess. Fuck you. So I go back to an older method of stenciling. I send that over to Photoshop, but that's not after I struggle to get the iPad to register any of my touches. Once it's on my laptop, I open it up in the filter gallery. I use the photocopy filter, and I basically balance the detail until it's at a point where it looks readable to me. Now, I've got to bear in mind that as much as the Epson could read some of the lighter shades, the Brother struggles even more. So I've got to make it darker than I anticipate for this. The biggest bonus of using the Brother printer to make the stencils is that I can get away with using just the Electrum Premium instead of my usual concoction that you've seen me use in other videos. It's way easier to do it that way. Now, this stencil is so fucking huge that it takes two of us to apply this bloody thing. Now, originally I was going to do this over 3 sessions, but once we got the stencil on there, I felt quite confident that we'd be able to get this face done in the first session and then be able to get Cthulhu and that face at the top done the day after. I go around with a marker and just line out the vanishing points so that I know where to finish each section. Now, normally at this point, I just list what colors that I'm pulling out, but I figured I'll tell you why. I use full saturation grays instead of doing a grey wash. A grey wash is just black and watered down black, because I find that once the tattoo is healed, I'm not then kind of tied to the client's skin tone. I control the depth all the way through. Now, this blue set is one that I use because I like how in the darker colors, it's kind of murkier. It's got a bit of a grayish base tone to it. But by the time we get into the intense pigments and like this Bahama blue, it's nice, vibrant, and strong. Now, this is a set that I put together for my own uses. These are the colors that I've picked in a way that blends in a way that I like. It's not necessarily the best, it's just what I like. I have the same with the pinks. When we're looking at the dark tones, I like how grey and murky they are. And then by the time we get into these high tones, they're nice, vibrant, they've got a lot of kick. Now, I like to accent the very high tones on pieces like this with just these oranges and yellows. This is so that it kind of moves into this warm area instead of just sitting in that overwhelming sea of cool blues. Now, as always, I'm starting at the wrist and just working my way up. I always try and break it up into sections that I can do in maybe an hour, hour and a half at most. This is mainly for pain control. You can see at this point we've braked for lunch and we've just got an hour's worth in. Shit in my mouth. Oh, the dumb thing is that I'm editing this myself, so I could have easily removed that. Anyway, we start to move up through the mouth, and you can see where I'm starting to leave areas open so that the Cthulhu that's going to go on the inside of his arm has space to move into. It's going to be much easier for me to pull what's on the outside round if I need it, but it's going to be hard for me to have to cover any sections up. Someone told me once that you need to get the eyes and nose right in a piece, and you can fuck up the rest of it and it'll still look like a decent face. So I do the eyes and nose as their own dedicated sections. Ah, sick. What great focus, Sammer. Good. Idiot. The eyes and nose get the most attention because those are the focal points and those are the bits that you're going to care about most when you're looking at this piece. I get to move at a good rate. This piece goes so smoothly and so quickly. We ended day one with this full forearm face. Poor bastard got his elbow blasted, and we are able to move up nice and cleanly. Now, while you're ogling what we managed to do on the first day, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who is on the top tier of my Patreon. This is the Zealot of Sammer. I just want to thank Liana Henry, Paul Harrington, Richard, Brian McInnes, Noobinator, and Gentle Rat Noodle Eater. Again, what a fucking name for paying more money than everybody else to hear me talk. But no, thanks guys. You actually keep this whole thing ticking along. And on to day 2, where we get to peel the dermal armor off and see how this whole thing has settled overnight. Now, I really like the dermal armor. It keeps the whole thing protected and doesn't allow that same kind of leaky buildup that you get normally with just like Sanoderm. On to the second day, we start by heading right near the elbow, blasting in those black ink tears, and we move nice and cleanly into Cthulhu's tentacles. Now, I know a lot of you are really eager to see the Cthulhu section of this bit finished. We actually don't have a follow-up date booked at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get there soon. I again work section by section, just trying to make it as, I'm not going to say painless, but just try and make sure that we're not lingering in an area longer than we need to. For those of you that are wondering, I do most of the texture in this piece with a 9-round shader. Those areas with the smooth gradients, and wherever possible, I try and use... Why the fuck have you just filmed the back of your head? Terrible, terrible camera placement. Anyway, as I was saying, I try and use the biggest needle groupings possible for each section, just to speed us up and make sure that we are getting the smoothest and cleanest gradients wherever possible. I thought it'd be interesting to show this bit in real time, show you just how slow this process actually is. So I'm using a 9-round shader there, and this is to build up those textures and those little bits of detail that you get in Cthulhu's head to kind of create that gross and lechy texture. These are textures that I wouldn't be able to get in. Did I say textures? These are textures that I wouldn't be able to get in with a mag, so taking my time and building them up slowly is what gives you that kind of gnarly, gross, detailed, tentacly textured nastiness. You see the up and down or side to side movement to create the kind of streaking that you want to get across the head and in the tentacles. The idea is that I want to make quite chaotic movements and let the texture form naturally. If I try and force it too much, it might end up becoming too uniform and too clean, which won't give us the kind of gross skin-like organic natural feel that it would otherwise have. The other reason it's important to use a round shader instead of a mag is because a mag would give us these smoother, more wide movements, whereas I want it to be quite rough. And again, using the machine to create the texture that I want to achieve and let the machine do the work for me. It's important to remember that the technology that you have around you is there to serve you and get out of your way. Use the tools you have to make your life easier and get the best possible result. If I was fucking around with coil machines, I'd be too busy tuning them and trying to make sure this whole thing, the machine fucking works, and I won't be able to get this effect in. Now, we've got me doing this bit in real time again because I thought it'd be quite cool to see how I block in these areas of solid black. You see that I've got the mag at a slight angle and I'm just making these forwards and backwards motions. The angle is to make sure that there is an overlap between each pass. But the forward and backwards motion is just for the speed. You were told to do these tiny circles for your forward and backwards motions, but I find them to be unreliable, and you get these kind of tight circles in your black. Whereas the forward and backwards motion, I find works really nicely. You know, when I was a kid, I had this recurring nightmare of this carousel just spinning round and round forever, and I was stuck on it. And sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing when I talk about my process in these videos. I'm just going round and round in circles. Again, with this bit, the mouth is its own section, nose is its own section, and both eyes are treated as one section. I add in my lowlights as the next bit, because that's the part that gives this face structure to me. I then add in the greys around the mouth and below the eye, and then we move into the pinks and oranges with that light source above. Now I get Brie to douse this thing in witch hazel. Just let the whole thing calm down a little bit before I get to take some pictures and some video of one of the coolest fucking tattoos that I've ever made in my career. Look how fucking sick this thing is. Please, if anybody wants anything like this, email me. There should be a link in the description for my booking page. Come and get some cool shit like this. And once again, thanks to everybody on my Patreon. Thanks for watching this. I hope you like this one. And this is the first time I mean it. Actually like and subscribe so I can get more shit like this out there. This is fucking cool. Anyway, thanks for watching. All my links in the... I always run out of steam at the end of the video. Thanks.